Hi, everybody. Welcome to From Adversity to Awakening. I'm your host, Peggy O'Neill, and I have today a very special guest with us, a celebrity from Hollywood, Nic Novicki. Am I saying your name right, Nick?
Yeah, no Vicky, but however you
No,
say it, it's
no,
good with
Vicky.
me.
Okay, sorry. All right. So I just know him as Nick, like he's like one of those guys like Cher and Elvis, right? You just call him Nick. So he doesn't even need a last name. So Nick is a little person like I am. Let's put our hands up, Nick. We both have similar hands, but he does actually have a different skeletal dysplasia than me. I won't go into all of that right now because it's kind of boring. Anyway, Nick is a friend of mine from Little People of America, and I saw him. He hosted a comedy night during our national convention last week, and he was hilarious and very uplifting and very positive and no potty mouth. And I thought he was a great fit for our this podcast. So I invited him to come and talk to you all about the challenges. He's the father of two. He has been married for how many years now, Nick?
It'll be 10 in September.
10. Wow. Okay. And he is doing stand up for a long time now. He's in TV shows and goes all over the world to do his comedy. He's rubbing shoulders with big celebrities in Hollywood at the at the Academy Awards and all that. But why don't you tell us a little bit more about your work, Nick?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
It was so great spending time with you at the Little People Convention. Uh,
thanks.
I love too pointing out we do have kind of similar
We
hands.
do have similar
So
hands. Yeah, very similar.
I have pseudoachondroplasia. I know you're like, oh, it's not interesting. I think it's interesting. My kind of dwarfism, pseudoachondroplasia. Um,
Let's slow it down for the folks at home. Pseudo achondroplasia. Yeah,
yeah. Pseudoachondroplasia. And the interesting thing is, my kind of dwarfism doesn't show up right away. So my
right.
parents didn't know till I was almost 5, had no
Yes,
idea that I was a
yes.
little person.
Sherry's son has is pseudo, and I met him as a baby, and I could swear on my on swear on my life that he was going to be an average sized child, and he certainly turned out. And he's shorter than me, I think. How tall are you, Nick?
I'm 3'10".
I'm 3'8", so we're right in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, but it was so great being at the conference. So as you mentioned, I'm a comedian, I'm an actor, I'm the founder and director of the Easter Seals Disability Film Challenge. So that's a film competition where you have to have somebody with a disability in front of or behind the camera. It's a 5-day competition where you make a film. It has somebody with a disability, but the films don't have to be about disability.
Right.
Uh, and so my background is, as you said, I'm a comedian that I have been doing it for a long time now, over 20 years.
Wow. Wow.
And it has brought me into a lot of fun things where I've gotten to tour all over the world. I've done military tours for the troops, so I've performed in 6 continents. I've been in quite a few TV shows and movies, but it's been a gradual, climb,
Yeah, and
I
that's,
guess.
expansion, acceleration, that's all awesome. And I'm just having a memory of we did a gig together back at the Olympics, not this past one, but the one prior. So it was 5 years ago,
No,
10,
I think it was more than
no,
that.
or
It
nine
was
years ago must have been. And
no, I think it was,
it was
believe it or not.
2011. It was 2011.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Was it 2011?
And we went to Canada, remember?
It would have been 2010, right? Or no?
Yeah, 2010. Yeah. And we went to Canada and we were minions, like banana, banana.
Yeah, yeah.
We had the we had the minion costumes over us and we were on a TV
Good
promotion.
Morning America, right? Weren't we on
And
Good Morning America?
oh yeah, Good Morning America. That's right. I forgot. Oh yeah, but up Good Morning America. That's the memory. And then I did it also at the Macy's Day Parade a year later. Did you?
No, I don't think they wanted me back because I I was like I didn't want to wear these crazy feet, I had to my shoes have to be kind of specific. So I was like,
I
hey,
see.
I
Yeah.
did I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And
Yeah.
I'm a comedian. I'm used to kind of working more with my mouth and hands. And
Yeah,
so being in
exactly.
that thing, it was a restrictive
It
suit.
was
And I was
very,
kind of like, there was snow, and I was like, look, I have to wear my shoes with my orthotics.
that
And
was
they
smart.
were really great. Everybody was so nice that worked on the show.
It was,
But
it,
I did pull kind of a last minute, hey, I'm leaving my shoes on.
yeah, well, both of those both of those experiences are very memorable. And I have a picture of us in a bobsled, and we're like, we're
Ah,
making that we're screaming our heads off as we're zooming down the mountain anyway. So let's focus in on challenges and overcoming challenges. Um, I'm so glad you're here, and I'm hoping the audience is enjoying our past connection info.
yeah.
Anyway, tell me a little bit about the biggest diversity or plural diversities that you have come up against in your life, being a little person and being in the business that is definitely made for people of a certain quote unquote image, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I've kind of always decided to just have my philosophy on life be like that of optimism in a situation. Being as a little person that grew up in the East Coast, people would say crazy stuff to me all the time. I grew up in, the Northeast where
Be
people would
derogative.
derogative or just say things, hey, you're little or what's up, all these kind of terms. And instead of being upset with that or I want a photo, I'm just like, hey, what's up? How are you? I'm gonna take, I would kind of say, look, I'm gonna shift this to where I'm not going to have a negative experience for me because of what you're doing, So
That is
that's
so
just the
awesome.
way that I've always had in my life. And I
Yeah,
think I decided to enter a career which is very challenging in that and being an actor and being a comedian. And I think it doesn't matter if you're a little person, if you have a disability, when you enter the entertainment industry, you're entering a field that is very challenging. And it is,
competitive.
competitive, and rejection is a huge part of it.
Yeah,
So, in terms of a challenge, I entered a career that was, you're not really in the entertainment industry unless you're failing and then climbing as you learn the process, because otherwise, there are certain examples where no one's ever acted or, and all of a sudden they just are found and end up in a big movie, but those are very rare. And usually those are not sustainable careers because
right.
you kind of have to, learn as you go and grow and get better. And
Yeah,
failing is how you get better,
yeah.
So I think the more you do, the better you get at it. I've been doing stand-up comedy now for 20 something years. I don't even know, 22 years.
Mhm.
And so, there's shows that have just been awful. I've had bottles thrown at me in Philly. And I've been, booed off stage. I've been every kind of experience you could think of, I have had. But I've also had so many beautiful experiences. And I think sometimes failing has led me to get better. It's made me write more and kind of recenter myself. Failing at auditions has made me say, you know what, I need to I need to practice more. I didn't get this role partially because of me. I mean,
Right,
this is
right, right.
I think you always have to kind of look sometimes at what more can you do,
Yeah,
to
yeah,
be better, because I
yeah.
think sometimes it's easier to kind of point, I'm not getting this because of that, or in the end, it's like you just need to kind of focus more on how can I be better, and
Right.
in this craft, as
Well,
an artist.
I just want to point out, you don't have to do that, but you made a conscious choice to do that. And I think that that's what makes all the difference. You made a conscious choice to turn negative attention into positive attention, and you made a choice to turn rejection of your roles into uh, incentive for you to sharpen your sword.
Yeah. You know what? I gotta say, I kind of feel like I don't even know if I did make a conscious effort. That's kind of just the way I am. I sort of came out that way.
What
I
about
feel
your
like.
parents? How was like my parents played a big role, and
Yes,
I did the same thing. I decided, you know what? Whatever I want to do, I'm going to do it. And if I can do it as well as others, great. And if I can't, too bad. And
yeah,
if people want to stare, point, laugh, whatever, that's their thing. And I'm going to tell you, I have a new way that I turn energy around, especially with kids, because kids is really the hardest thing because
I
they
love it.
haven't seen Little People, Big World. They haven't seen Little People before. They don't know, for us, they're weird, we're scary, we're odd, we're, a shock sometimes. And
Yeah,
so one time I was in an elevator with these three little girls, like came onto the elevator at my eye level with like a 3, a 4, and a 5-year-old, and with a father. And I'm like freezing like I'm a deer in the headlights. I'm like frozen, like, oh my God, they're all gonna attack me, and then nobody says anything. And I went into my heart. I had been in a workshop and I learned about going in my heart. And I went in my heart and I heard this sound, I heard this sentence and I said it out loud. I said, have you guys ever met a little person before? And they said, they all in unison, they shook their head like this. I said, well, it's your lucky day. And everybody laughed and all the tension was gone. And we talked about what they were going to do that day. And I use that line now a lot.
it's
And
a great line.
isn't it? Right? It totally shifts. And if they, maybe I won't ask them. I'm like, if there's like a short interaction or something, I'll just start with, your lucky day. You're meeting somebody super unique. Like how often do you ever see a little person? Never, right? And here I am, and I'm meeting you, and wow, like I'll do that. So yeah, I learned also over time, and now I'm so much better at that than I used to be. At the beginning, I got beaten down by it when I was young.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's normal. But I always say too that I personally love kids because there's a certain honesty to their
Yes,
interactions.
yes, that's
I think
true.
sometimes I would prefer, and this is me. I don't speak for other little people or other people that have disabilities. This is me, my philosophy. I prefer people being, out with how they're feeling, even in these awkward moments in the
Yeah,
grocery store and all these things. I
yeah.
would rather have somebody ask a question or say something versus silence and the kind of
Contraction and weird
fear,
energy, and yeah. Uh-huh.
fear or energy, or let's pull them away, or parent pulling a kid away. I'd rather him say, "Why are you so small?" It's the way I am. Hey, what's you're a Giants fan or whatever's on the shirt. And now we're done. We're talking about something else. I
Awesome.
think it's better. I think it's better. Sometimes we're taught not to say certain things, and I don't know if that's necessarily for me, the best thing because I like to just, I think sometimes, silence and don't bring it up becomes something where they're afraid,
Yeah,
rather than just being like, oh
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
He's a swimmer. He likes to swim, or he's a fan of the New York Yankees or something that
Right,
relates to the
right,
kids.
right. So it sounds like challenges for you so far have been getting into this acting world, dealing with rejection, and also dealing with sort of the downside of being a little person, the gawking and the pointing and all that stuff. So,
See, yeah, I
but
would
that's
never
not
say that
really,
that's never, I think that's part of my life, being little,
uh,
but I never said that. I would never think that that's been a challenge for me. That side of it,
I'm here to tell you, Nick, it is. It's
but it,
just
but
that you're so well adapted that. And I asked you, how did your parents deal with it? What was their thing?
So they were they let me go out, I just
Me
have been
too.
out since I was a kid.
Yeah,
And my mom said, like, I remember, very poignantly, first of all, they're great parents. They gave me, love and, the way, you are the way you are. But they also let me get out there and, be on the playground, be in scenarios, be in the playground of a kind of fast food restaurant. And kids would say something crazy. Why are you so small? Why are you this way? It's the way I am. And my mom kind of retold me that I was, 4 or something. And I kind of just explained this to this kid. And she was like, in that moment when I heard you say that, I knew everything was going to be okay because she was scared up to that point.
awesome.
But I think it is like, it's an instinctual thing that, it's I guess just a way that I am with certain, things that
Well,
luckily
so
there's no way for me to kind of shift that. Now, have there been moments where I've been, and with somebody I'm working with and somebody says something crazy? Of course, I'm not like I've had moments, but I
right,
think
right.
overall, like being little, I feel like from that scenario has never been like the way society treats me like an issue for me. I have
So
had,
what would you
physical
say has
issues.
been your biggest challenge?
I don't know. I mean, I guess my biggest challenge,
Yeah.
uh, I guess it would just be it's whatever, I don't look at big challenges in my life. I kind of look at everything in from a positive lens. So my biggest challenge could change. I try to stay like goal orientated.
Mhm.
So my biggest challenge being like I need to, whatever my goals are, that's the
Right,
challenge I'm
right,
trying to do. So I'm not
right,
trying to look at major things I need to shift, where I'm trying to get more people to enter this year's Easter Sales Disability Film Challenge. I'm trying to get people to enter. That's challenging. Getting sponsorship, challenging in that moment until it happens.
right,
Uh,
exactly.
the next acting job, the next comedy job. So all these different things. Now, growing up too, I mean, I did have a lot of surgery. Learned how to walk again, all that kind of stuff, which was challenging.
For
But
sure.
I also kind of feel like those experiences shaped my life and made me who I am. You
Yeah,
know, I think I grew up so much as a kid.
yeah,
I went
yeah,
from
me
being a
too.
really bad student to being like, getting a scholarship to college. And I think that period of body casts and surgery was what literally defined my life, to an extent and brought me on a path of like focusing more. So I think like there's been, challenges, of course, for everything, in career and life and, finding the right partner and all these different
Yeah,
scenarios.
that's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting about the body cast. I want to talk about that for a second. So it
Yeah.
sounds like you just, I think, I mean, because I'm a psychotherapist and I know that parents influence children significantly in the first 5 years,
Mm.
that their love and acceptance of you sort of instilled in you a positive mindset, and that the fact that you're just now, after talking about this for 10 or 15 minutes, bringing up the body cast thing, which, when when average size people get a broken ankle, they'll complain about it till when the cows come home. I mean, really. And you're a kid and how far did your body cast go, from your shoulders to your toes, or from your
Not
chest?
a little below the armpit.
Uh-huh, from your chest down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
that
how
was,
long?
I think I was in the body caster about 4 months,
And you couldn't walk
twice, two
twice,
different times.
2 different times. And you couldn't walk.
Nope. Then you have to learn how to walk after.
And could you get out of bed?
No, no, well, I could get lifted from out of the bed into a reclining wheelchair.
Wow.
So, but we went to the movies, we did stuff that was like,
Mhm. Yeah.
we made our life, I
Yeah.
was still playing video games with other friends and people would come over and, you know,
So I just want to point out what the power of a positive mindset makes, because most people would take that experience and they might never recover. They might never ever get back up on their feet. They might just think, oh my God, whatever the negative voices are, I can't do it. I'll never be accepted. I'm different, blah, blah, blah. I didn't get these opportunities, and so screw the world, like that, right? So
yeah.
I just want to bring out that your positive mindset, it seems to me, has been an incredibly powerful force in your life to have you go through something that severe of an adversity and not even consider it an adversity. Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Pretty
Yeah.
amazing, Nick.
I kind of have always just sort of had that kind of, a certain it's not that I block out things that are bad. I just sometimes don't focus on it, you know.
Right.
I kind of go like,
Yeah,
hey,
we're on to the
I
next
try to
thing.
look at,
You
you know,
stay in the
thought
present.
I stay in the present. So of course,
Yeah.
there's been times where I've been upset with certain things. I've had from in my career, certain jobs that just didn't materialize or, certain gigs and you're like, ah.
Yeah. A lot of hope
But
behind that. And then a
yeah,
disappointment. Yeah.
yeah. But in terms of like my life as a kid, it's, the more I think about it, and I talk to, average height parents now with little people, and
Uh-huh.
they have the fear. They have a fear of, are my kids going to be okay, or the
Yeah.
unknown, or surgery, and all these things.
Yeah.
I know it sounds crazy, but I'm like, if I look back at my life, I'm not like any of the things related to my dwarfism were major, like, oh my God, it was awful. I mean, if you
Me
think
too.
about it, you're like, oh, I also had acne. You're putting things like
Right.
in with
Right.
like
Right.
relatable to like whether you're a little person or not. So I think it's like there's just beauty in us, as little people. And I think like all the challenges that come with being a little person, there's challenges with everybody. I remember, talking to people that were like the best baseball player or the best basketball player, or football player, and some of them had major challenges. Uh, some kind of where I grew up with, unfortunately, had some serious setbacks in their lives, related to decisions they made, in terms
You
of
know.
substance and other things.
Yeah.
Um, and so they were dealing with challenges that were, in some senses greater than I had as a little
Yes.
person. So I'm
Yeah.
saying like,
Yeah.
it's all about how you accept yourself and I believe that what was great about my parents was that they were just kind of like, hey, you're gonna do everything. You will find a stool, you're gonna do this, and all these elements of being treated the same and not hyper focusing. Now, of course, they also still did, make sure that I had adaptations and, when I had, pain as a kid that I could sit and things like that. They weren't, going out of their way, but they made me feel like I was a part of everything, and
Yeah.
that there
I
wasn't
can.
like,
That's so
yeah,
awesome. I can relate to that. I was mainstream school and camp. So camp
yeah,
was like horseback riding, swimming,
oh,
soccer,
wow.
trampoline, volleyball, badminton, all the stuff, right? And I'm out
Yeah.
there doing the thing. So besides having great parents, positive mindset, and a basic sort of baseline of optimism, are there any other tools or skills you think that you've developed that have helped you overcome the adversities?
You know, I used to do a joke about it that like I have like a certain like the optimism like it's just a part of who I am. So like I would be like all these things. I can't remember how the joke went, but it was something like this was wrong and I'm lactose intolerant and I have ADD or all these other things came up and I was like, but I'm an optimist, so I can't stop, whatever. So I think some of that like just kind of comes from just I don't know. Like, I don't know if that was something that I developed with tools. I think I feel lucky that that's just the way I've been, in the sense
Yeah,
of instead of
yeah,
focusing on somebody laughing, I'm kind of like, who cares? I could just be like, hey, or, be thinking of a moment or just kind of, and, I want to make sure that, my daughters, because I have two daughters now, that that they feel that too.
yeah, yeah.
And I
How
think
is the stare factor with having a little person family? So your wife is short statured, correct? I mean, I know she is because I've met her, and you have two short statured children, right?
so.
Or you're
We
not sure about one of them.
actually well, we have no idea for the baby is like we're pretty positive without genetic, testing that my oldest daughter has my kind of dwarfism.
Uh-huh.
Although, it's a long, complicated thing. But basically,
That
that's
is complicated. And your wife is what type?
achondroplasia is which is the most common type of dwarfism.
Right.
So that's, for people obviously, but for anyone that doesn't,
Yeah.
that's 80 something percent of
At least.
little people have achondroplasia. So that shows up right away. But pseudoachondroplasia, we're the wild card. So you don't really
Right,
know. My
right.
parents had no idea until I was
My
literally
parents didn't either.
5.
Yeah.
And we were in a pseudo meetup with a kid that got diagnosed at 6.
Yeah.
So yeah, one daughter's 4 and one daughter is 4 months. So but yeah, I think that part of that is it's just, look, I forget being little people or being us. I just want them to grow up like, you know, feeling like, hey, just everything's okay to an extent. Forget being little, forget, all these other things. It's, hey, I didn't get selected to be in this, sports team or picked to play in this whatever game at school. I think it's important to just, be like, it's okay.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of tools, I think the greatest tool for me now is I'm almost 43. I've been in show business since I was a teenager. Been talking since I was a kid. I have failed so many times. So I think the greatest tool I've learned is adversity is like just staying in the game, just continuing to just, you know, being like in sports terms, like just getting struck out and continuing to get up at bat, because I think whether you want to be in entertainment or whether you want to be in business or sales, I've always been, I used to sell stuff too. I was always kind of into that mentality, is just continue to get up. And, so that has been my greatest tool of being okay with failing. And I think that is translatable in other areas.
Yeah, but I would call it more like tenacity, persistence,
Persistent.
courage, hope, and optimism. I mean, all of those things have been a part of what has played. And I love hearing you say that, you failed so many times. I feel the same way. And I mean, for me, that happened mostly in the romantic field. I wasn't married until I was 40 years old. I didn't meet my husband until I was 40. So between the ages of 15, when my friends started dating, and 40, there was what, 25 years of feeling like I was bashing my head on the wall. So that was hard. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean I'm 42 and I will be married for 10 years
Uh-huh.
this year, but still that's 32 and I got married. So I mean, I met and I had dated Teal for my wife for about 4 years before that. Um but yeah, I mean, dating was hard. Always, it
Yeah,
was always
dating
like,
is hard.
dating was hard. I
Yeah.
think, I did a joke about this at the Little People convention, but I think that like there's a fun thing about that with like there's so much like stakes involved with Little People conventions because people will kind of take 1 year into 5 days and throw that all into like romance of like I got to be in the dance and they're like hyper like bringing everything into like one
No,
year into 4 days. So it's like now we're dating, now we're not, now we're dating. All these things related. But
for the younger people, and when I was young, it was a big emotional roller coaster for sure.
yeah,
And to
yeah,
be on equal playing ground for a week, it's a great opportunity. And it also is like you could look at it through the other lens and like, yeah, but what about the other 51 weeks of the year? It's really
yeah.
difficult. So, anyway, I don't want to get off into a big thing about that, but
No, no. I mean,
it
but
is a
it's
definite challenge for us.
it is a challenge. And I think, interestingly enough, too, like it probably was more challenging for us because there was no social media. So you wouldn't be able to
Right.
see
Right.
people.
No. And
You wouldn't be able to see a photo or get on like a video chat call. It was like writing letters or calling somebody on the phone or, you'd only see them in person.
I
Now I
mean,
think there's like this instant connection, but I don't know. I mean, I'm sure challenges within that too.
when I was dating, I had to pay for long distance phone calls.
Yeah.
So yeah, letters was definitely a thing. Definitely
Yeah.
a
I
thing.
used to write to a little person that I was like a pen pal buddy with that I met
Uh-huh.
at like, one of my first conventions.
Uh-huh.
And he was like in Denmark and I would write him a letter. And it was so exciting to like get a letter back from him.
Exactly. Exactly. So how do you think that all, I want to point out one other really a tool that I've heard you talk about that I meant to mention earlier is that you have made good choices, that you have made healthy choices. And one of the most healthy choices I see is that your incredible optimism. And I just want to tell a story about my experience at the Little People Conference at your comedy club. First, you came on and you were like making a lot of jokes about being a little person, but they were all, first of all, hilarious. And second of all, optimistic. They were all about, Nick's up there saying, I love being a little person. I love having little people family. I love having all of this attention. I love this. I love that. I love, whatever it is. And you were so lit up and positive about it. And then there was another comedian that got up, potty mouth, first of all. Second of all, was saying really derogatory things about little people. And I, ended up leaving because I was so didn't want to um I didn't want to agree to be in that field because I thought it was really distasteful that he said things that were derogatory towards little people. I mean, we get enough of it in the real world, in the normal world. But anyway, I just want to point that out to the audience that there was such a contrast for me when I experienced that. It's like there are two different ways to do this job. He's making funny things. He did say a few funny things, and there's a way to do it that makes people feel good, and there's a way to make it that people feel bad. And that's just like how, when I'm in schools and I'm teaching kids about how to respond to people with differences, I'm like, you can make them feel good or you can make them feel bad. And, smile, wave, and say hi. That's the way to make them feel good. Anyway, I just wanted to comment on your good choices and healthy choices in your work and how it impacted me. It was very impactful. Yeah,
Oh,
that's when I was like, I'm happy about my podcast.
thank you so much. And it was amazing, being at the Little People convention and doing comedy for, little people. It's exciting, but truth be told, like it's also nerve-wracking, because you're like you want it to go
Hey,
good. You want people to be there. You're doing a show and I didn't actually the show was kind of put together. I booked some comedians and other people came and friends and part of the show, but you never know who's going to come. And a lot of people did come, and the show went good. But now I tour with Nate Bargatze, who's a comedian, and we do arenas. So we're doing 18,000 seaters. Uh, and to be honest, I was more nervous going up for the
I
Little People
understand.
convention than I am at most of those because one, it's like you just want it to go good. Because
Yeah,
also I'll see little people more,
that's right. You're going to see them
and
again for
I'll
sure.
see him again. It's like, I would rather like bomb in front of 18,000 people than uh
That
than
ball's
in
thrown
front of
at
like
you.
just like 10 people in my family because I'm
Yeah,
gonna see him for another like the rest of my life now. But it was so much support and love and it was just exciting. It was
you
exciting
did,
every facet. When
you
I'm
did
at
a
a
great
little
job.
people convention, I never want to leave. I'm
Yeah,
like, oh, I don't want to
I
go.
know,
Still
right?
like I'm
Right.
I'm 42 years old and it's like you show up at the conference and you have butterflies. You're like, I don't know, when you're going in like it just brings you back to being a kid and being like, well, who am I gonna know and who's here? And then you're there, and you're like, oh, hey, I remember talking to this girl or that guy, and it's just like the same feeling as a kid that you don't want to leave. For me
Exactly. Exactly.
at the end of it.
How do you think that having a positive attitude, making good choices, being optimistic, and all these sorts of things that you've had in your, um, I would say in your character, have helped you to create more connection with yourself, with others, with, I don't, if you have some kind of like relate to spirit or God or something like that. How do you think it's impacted that?
I've grown up Catholic. I believe in God, that's a part of, who I am. And I think also innately, like for me, like a huge part of what I do now is the Easter Seals Disability Film Challenge. So helping other people with disabilities take their career in their own hands. To me, now at this point in my career, I actually find myself getting almost more satisfaction when other people get jobs versus when I book a job. Now it's still exciting. I'm still acting. I'm still touring, and I've had a lot of like exciting things happen in my career recently in terms of TV shows and movies and all these other things. But when I'm able to help get other people jobs, it's another form of satisfaction, and like it just makes me just purely happy when I can really
Yeah,
see that like
yeah.
other people are succeeding, and was my dream to create this thing, and people are now getting jobs from it. So I think that kind of motivates me and brings like a different set of, I guess, spiritual side, when
And
other people
also,
get opportunities.
yeah, and I was going to make the connection between when we connect more, that there's more joy, and you just talked about that. And I just want to also iterate that not only are you helping those people, you're helping all people with disabilities, because the more that the average people, the bell curve people, see people, little people, just people with disabilities on a screen, which they don't normally see, the more it gets normalized, just like what Little People Big World did for us, right? Totally normalized it.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, for people who are familiar with the show, which certainly isn't everybody, but it's more than just those actors. It's really everybody with disabilities that you're impacting. And God love you. And I mean, it's an awesome thing that you're doing. I love that. And I'm starting a foundation now for little people of Africa and helping bring medical support to little people in Africa. And I would say the same thing for me, that it's more satisfying actually to be giving the help to those people in severe need. Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
And I'll be
But
doing some fundraising, so I'm just planting some seeds here. Anyway, let's see. Is there anything else that you want to talk about with our audience? Any pearls of wisdom you'd like to leave us with? Anything else you want to say about how joy has increased in your life as you've become more and more adept at dealing with
yeah,
your
I
challenges?
mean, well, I gotta say too, I have a French bulldog who brings me so much joy in my family. That my family is there. There's a certain amount of, for my wife, my daughters, that's like, just it brings me so much kind of love, that it's hard to describe, but I've felt that same kind of love, obviously not as strong, but in the same vein, being around little people my whole life. And all these friends that I have that are little people that are just lifelong friends that I've been to conference with. There's just this real special joy that I get, being around a lot of little people. I just love it. It feels so exciting. And I'm still
Yes.
on that high. So find your own people that you connect with. Find those moments. If you're a little person, get involved, little people of America, hang out, be around your own group, but in other versions. If you're, into spiritualness, I mean, I feel like all these other kind of elements here,
I do.
like a spiritual audience. So if that's your thing,
Yeah.
that's a community. So,
And
go
there's a
camping.
whole bunch of little people that are there to do sports.
Yeah.
Like that's a huge part of little
It's a
people.
huge part of little people. It's a huge part of everything. If you're in a wheelchair, there's wheelchair basketball. If you're into swimming, there's that. If you're into painting, find your community, people that want to paint with you, or do speaking gigs or dancing or whatever you're into. There are people out there that like that too. And so find those bonds, because that's for me, something that I've always it's people. I don't like being by myself. I'd like to kind
And
of
I,
meet new
I find I
people
work much better in relationship. I say I can go till 2 in the morning with no problem if I'm in relationship with work.
that's right.
Yeah, and you're making a point, which is one of the main points of this podcast, which is that connection brings joy.
Yeah.
Connection brings meaning, purpose, and depth and fulfillment, And so
See, I mean, you're so smart. You're saying everything I'm trying to say here,
I just saying it in a different way. Oh,
No, you're amazing, and thank
thank
you so
you.
much for everything you do and for having me on.
Yeah, that's great. So stay on after I hang up with everybody, and yeah, so we'll talk about some things in a minute. Anyway, everybody, thank you, Nic Novicki. Did I say it right?
That's right.
Okay, good. Thank you so much, Nic. Love you and all the best to you and bringing your beautiful light of optimism, healthy choices, and celebrating life and celebrating love with all the people around you. I wish you all the best. And I will see everybody else on the next episode of From Adversity to Awakening. So long for now, everybody.